Hi everyone, welcome back. Looking again at the equation of a straight line in different settings, I suppose I use the right word, settings, where it mucks things up. Just remember the basics all the time. As we're talking about a straight line, we're talking about y equals mx plus c, and we're getting the gradient first, all the time. Almost, no matter what the question is, y equals mx plus c, get the gradient first. So we have a little bit of a twist that this line is not written in the form where we can just say this is the gradient. So first of all, you have to change it into the y equals form, which we call making y the subject. So if I made y the subject of that, a lot of people have to fiddle around and get it right. So let's have a little bit of a go at it. If I went plus y to this side, I go plus y to that side. This is the way my brain, when I see that as a negative, I want to take it to the other side. There'll be a lot of people out there who have swap sides, swap signs, and you end up with 2x minus 3 equals y. Normally we write y equals first, and we've got the 2x minus 3. And what does that tell us? There we go, it tells us the gradient. The gradient is 2. So go back to the original equation of a straight line. We now know that the equation is y equals 2x plus something. And how do we find that in C? Go back to substitution. So substitutions and everything. What can I substitute? In this case, I've only got one possibility. There's an x value and there's a y value. So I can put the, instead of the x, I can put the 1. Instead of the y, I can put a 2. And I end up with 2 equals 2 plus c. And the interesting part, which I did on this question, is c equals 0. So when you get your y equals 2x plus c, you end up with y equals 2x plus 0, which is y equals 2x. So you don't have to have everything go through at a numerical value other than the original, where it goes through at 0, 0. So in this case, instead of looking at lines that are parallel, we're looking at lines that are perpendicular to each other. So there's a basic rule about the perpendicular. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about gradient first. So how do we get the gradient first? It's not written in the form where it says y equals, so we need to rearrange that so it says y equals. Because once it's in the form y equals, which we call making y the subject, it tells us the gradient of that line. So, you know, when I see the negative there, I want to just take it to the other side. So I'd end up with x minus 1 equals 2y. Now, a lot of people will be comfortable with that. Just move the minus 2y to the other side. It's called, a lot of people call it swap sides, swap signs. I can go plus 2y, and I end up with that case there. Now, most people will swap that around and put the 2y first, because we normally write y equals first. You've got the x minus 1. Now, a couple of things to think about this one. When you get rid of a multiply by 2, I still think of divide 2, divide 2, divide 2. And you're left with y equals x on 2 minus a half. Now, that tends to muck a lot of people up because the gradient. Now, a lot of people will actually write x minus 1 on 2 for y. And they get mucked up a little bit in knowing what the gradient is. If you're confident, you can still see that the gradient of that line is a half. So that gradient there is a half. That's the same as this one here being written as a half of x minus a half. So whenever you've got a fraction, there's really a 1 there. So there's your fraction of a half. So we've got a gradient of a half. Now the trouble is now we're talking about perpendicular. And I don't know how many people are comfortable with it, but I'm just going to call this one the first gradient. I'm going to call the other one the second gradient, which is the gradient of the line that's perpendicular to it. If this is a half, all I do is turn it upside down, which is 2. And if that was positive, I make that negative. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, you're going to go through the m1, m2 equals minus 1. And you don't want to just remember that you turn it upside down and make it the opposite sign. If m1 was a half, when you multiply it by m2, you're going to end up with minus 1. And we can look at that for ages. Maybe I'll put in another video showing why that works. So how do I get rid of a half? I times this side by 2, I times that side by 2. The 2 and the half cancel each other out, and I've got the second gradient is minus 2. So the gradient perpendicular is minus 2. So why were we looking for the gradient? To put it back into the equation of the straight line. So now we've got y equals minus 2x plus c. And how do I get the c value again? Come back to substitution. So I will nag people and write s with a lot of dashes and then to get people to remember what to do. So what we're going to substitute is the only point we have, which is 3 and 3. So that'll be a 3, that's a minus 2 times 3 plus c. Got 3 equals minus 6 plus c. And if you still have to do it, if you add 6 to that side, you add 6 to that side. And we end up with c being 9. Now, so that means the equation of the line, the only possible equation of a line perpendicular to that line that passes through there is minus 2x plus 9. And that's it. I hope it helps. If you're finding it helpful, please let your friends know. See